What's up guys, and welcome to my channel Flame with a 4. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make yourself a custom Litten just like the one you see here straight after this intro. Hey guys, and welcome back. Right, so let's just get into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk you through a few things that I needed to use to be able to create this Litten here. Let me just give you a nice detailed look of her there. So that's the top of the head, obviously the ears are there, the whiskers, the detailed eyes, if you've got the little red lines on the feet, and the tail is done obviously like Litten. There you go, and then there's the back of it, and there's the top. Right, so I'm going to show you how I achieved this Funko Pop custom by obviously talking you through what I did. Then let me just leave her down there for a moment. So the first thing I had to do was obviously get something to work off. So this Siamese cat was the perfect thing for me to use, and that's what I went with. So I got the Siamese cat box and took the Siamese cat out. So what I'm going to do now is just, like I said, just go through a couple of things that I've used, and then I'll talk you through a step-by-step guide after this. So the first thing to make up the whiskers was using this balsa wood. So there you go. There's 84p for that, and this is so light. It's like air. It's crazy, and you can shape it and manipulate it. And then with that, I used a wire. So if you use a wire, you can push the wire into this balsa wood. I'll show you. And then obviously you can attach it to Litten, which is what I did with the whiskers, and it gives it strength. So the further you push it through, the better. And as you can see, it holds it in place. So if you fit a few of those in, tie them around, and then push them through the hole, and then tie it inside the pop, then that way it gives you a lot of structure. So when you're working on it and gluing it and shaping it with the Maliput, that you can obviously have a lot more structure there. Right, so I used some high build primer. I'll show you in this sort of like step guide when I used it and how I used it. But I just want to show you sort of what I get. So this is just from Motor Spares, this one here. And this plastic grey primer as well is also good because this sticks to the pops really easily. If you're going to key up a pop, which is, we call it keying up, but what it is, it's just making sort of like a surface for the paint to stick so it sticks well. You just use a bit of red scotch, or you can use grey scotch. Grey scotch is probably recommended because this left a few little scratches, but I didn't have any at the time. Right, so the other things are just in here. Just you need paint brushes. You need something to. This I want to take the head off, pop that up inside, and obviously that is good for painting with, so you don't get it all over your hands. This one's good for the body. This is just a screwdriver with a fine tip, and then I just sort of push that in, and then obviously I can allow me to paint on there. This is Maliput, so this is of modelling clay, and it's quite light. This pop doesn't weigh no more than an average pop. It's not heavy or anything. It's light as anything. So, right. So with this stuff, it's a two-part thing. So what you need to do is you get two parts, and as you put it together, it sort of molds. So you cut a little bit off, and then you put two together, and then you mold it, and then you can use it to obviously shape the stuff that you want. Once that's gone hard, then I went over it with some very fine car filler. So car filler to me was better because you can get it really, really fine. You can get really fine stuff which is almost like liquid, and you can use it and manipulate it how you want, and then you can sand it down. And I used 180 grit sandpaper to sand it down, finish it off with 320. It was absolutely fine. As you can see, the finish came out well. I also used this red paint. So I kind of just took the picture of Litten into Halfords, as you can see here, and I just matched it. When I did the detailing afterwards, I just squirted some into the lid. Wait for it to go off a little bit, because then it thickens up. So once it's thickened up, then you can put it on the paintbrush and you can use it to touch things up and make stuff and do things like that. So that's really good. So I use that red. So just in case you do decide to make one, that is called Mars Red for Volkswagen. And then this one is Ford Signal Yellow, which is what I used for the eyes. It's kind of like a light yellow. And then I used this Holtz Black. So this is from Motor Spares, and it's just a Holtz. It's just a black, no metallic in it at all, just a pure black. Right, so now that I've talked you through that, this is the sandpaper, just real quick, So that's the 320 grit paper there. So now that I've talked you through that, what we're going to do is we're going to do a step-by-step guide for this Litten and show you how we did it and how it was created. And if you want to have a go, if you need to get hold of us, I mean, obviously just put something in the comments below, just saying like, Dan, I'm stuck with this. If you're going to attempt to do one yourself, how did you do that? How did you do this? You know, if you do get stuck, please just contact me. I have got my social media pages there as well, so you can also contact me on that. Right, so just before we get into this, what pop would you like to see me make next for Pokemon? I'm thinking about doing a Torchic, but if you think that another one would be good, please let me know, and then obviously we'll do a custom on that, and hopefully we can get ourselves a nice little starter Pokemon collection, and then maybe work up to making bigger ones. This is my first ever custom pop, so you know, it's came out better than I thought, because I wasn't too sure how well it was going to come out. But let me give you one more detailed look at that before we get into it. There you go, guys, and see you in a bit. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is grab a Funko Pop. This one was quite cheap for me, and it was only £6. We do need to remove the head to make it easier for us to work on it, and that is what we are going to go and do. It's quite easily achieved, to be honest with you. If you thought it was quite hard to get head off, it really isn't. Right, so what we need to do is we need to get a hairdryer. You could possibly use one of those heater guns as well, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'll just get the hairdryer on there, nice medium heat, just to get it really warm, and then that way it will allow the head to pop off. There you go, pops off just like that. There is some glue in there, but once the glue is at a nice temperature, then it is so easy for the head to come out. Some of them can be a bit of a nightmare. I did struggle to get the Batman one off, which I did, and that was crazy. Right, so the next thing we need to do is the tail. Obviously, the tail is wrapped around in the picture, as you can see, and we need to stretch that out, because with the tail stretched out, it wouldn't look like Litten, and you wouldn't have much room to work on the tail. So what I did is just heated it up again with the hairdryer, and just pulled it and stretched it out until it went into place. After you've done that, you will need to use some, you can possibly use grey scotch as opposed to the red scotch that I'm using here. Just, it will leave less scratches. It doesn't need a lot on there, it only just needs a key. Once it's been keyed up, then it's going to be so much easier for you to be able to spray on. You can leave the pop eyes on. So I say pop eyes as in like these are the iconic pop eyes that are on all of Funko Pops. But I decided to cut mine off. I wanted Litten to look more realistic than anything. Some pops don't have these eyes. Some pops do have different types of eyes. But I wanted to. I mean, you can leave it on there and do one with, but I don't think Litten would look the same without her eyes. I was debating this a lot. Right, so as you can see, this is one of the whiskers. I made that up out of balsa wood, and we will get into that. So what you need to do is just make a template, mess around with it. The balsa wood is very, very cheap. I got a metre for 95p, which is pretty cheap. And you can cut it out with a Stanley blade, a Stanley knife, a crafting knife, anything really that you would need. Right, so once you've done that, you will need to use 180 grit sandpaper. With the 180 grit sandpaper, you just need to go over the eyes just to smooth the eyes off. I mean, I thought that it might make a hole, so I wasn't too sure. So I was going to get prepared to fill the holes in where the eyes came out if I needed to, but luckily I didn't need to. Right, once you've got your balsa wood done, you just need to push in some wire. So this is just normal garden wire. Pushing it in will allow it to have structure, and that's what you need. You need these to have structure, because if you just glue them on and then you try to put the putty and stuff around it, you'll find that it will just crack, and then obviously when you go to put the filler on afterwards, that will crack as well. It doesn't matter how many pieces you put into this section. You can put 3 or 4 wires, but just make sure when you've done it, tie them all together so that they slot through the cheek of the face. The cheek of the face is, you could either drill a hole in there, or I just push a screwdriver through, just so you can get it into place. If you want to, you can build up the balsa wood with, I would say, if you're going to like shape it and stuff, I would shape it now, as opposed to having it as square as that. I probably would make it more round if I did it again. So here is where you have to mix the Maliput up. So all you need to do is just get into it really, mix it up, mould it, shape it, do whatever you want with it, and then once it's all dry, you can go over it again with a nice fine filler. It's hard to sort of like show you how to do that. If you want me to do a video on, you know, how to mix up the Maliput and how to smooth it out and stuff like that, then I will do that. But it would have just took up too much time to do it in this to show you how to do it. You kind of have to go and do it and experiment with it before you can really get into it. This, like I said, this is my first custom, so I wasn't even sure how well this was going to come out or whether it was going to work at all. With the tail as well, all you need to do is just put it on there, mold it into shape, and once it goes hard, I mean, if you put it somewhere really warm, like the airing cupboards, let it dry out, then it goes really, really hard, and you can shape it. So you just shape it with sandpaper. You can use little files, anything like that, just to get the detail you want. And if you mess up, it doesn't matter because you can put more on and you can start again. So it doesn't really matter too much. Right, so the next thing we needed to do was kind of just get all the imperfections drawn out on this. So the best thing to do is just use a plastic grey primer, or you can use plastic white primer, it doesn't really matter, but I didn't want the red to go pink. So what I did is just did that, and that kind of indicated where there was mistakes, little dips and stuff like that, which you couldn't see without that being done. Once you get back onto the body, guys, all you need to do is go over with 320 grit sandpaper. That will take out any of the imperfections and any of the deep scratches from the 180 grit. You need to make sure that the tail is blended into the body, and you can achieve that by sanding it. Like I said, if you do need a video on how to use the putty or how to use the filler, then please do ask and I will make one on that. Right, once that's completed, you need to go over with some high build primer. You kind of want to just go over with this, and that sort of gives you the base to be able to work off. So this is where you want to like finish here, ready to use your colors. So if you're happy with it, then stop here. If you're not, then you can still add primer, you can still do other stuff to it, but you don't have to. It's just entirely up to you if you want to. It just allows you to see whether you're happy or not. Right, once you've done that, we need to go on to the body as well. With the body, that just needs to be the same. Just high build primer it, get it so that it's in a really good state, so that you are happy, because the how it looks now will be how it looks when it's painted. So if it looks really bad now in primer, then it will look really bad when it is painted. And obviously I wanted to brush paint these, but you can always see brush strokes and it never looks as good. So the best thing to do is spray paint it on, because you won't get paint any better than you would do if it was done with obviously spray cans. I do want to get into airbrushing because I think that that will obviously be a benefit as well. Right, so here I used the black. I used the black and then I finished it off with a lacquer. I didn't really need to lacquer it, and I do go over this again and not use lacquer. You don't need to lacquer the thing, because if with lacquer, paint can react. And the way we're handling it and using different colours on there, you'll probably be better off to just finish it off in base coat, which is what I did. Once you're happy with it, leave it about 24 hours to dry, and then you can start masking it off. So as you can see here, we masked off the eyes first, because that was the easiest thing to do. Don't worry if your fine line and your masking isn't perfect. It doesn't matter. With the eyes, I kind of weren't really happy with the left eye, which is what you're seeing in here, because it was a bit rounded, as you can see on the left hand side. But it really didn't matter in the end, because what happened, when I'm doing the final stages, I can get some paint and just spray that in the lid and then touch those up and then add that detail right at the end. So don't feel like you need to just sand it all down and start again. You can just continue. So here again, obviously use some fine line, masking tape, and then you just want to use some normal just any 3M tape or any sort of good masking tape that will stick, and then go over, add your coats on. All I did was a dust coat and a full coat. You don't need a lot, because if you build it up too much, when you're peeling it off, it will just peel the paint, and that is not what you want. That's not a result you want to have. Once you're happy there, what I did is I waited for that red to dry again. Usually waiting around about 2 to 3 hours for each coat. I had to do the top head again, because where I was sort of like working with it, it kind of like where the paper was over the top of it, it kind of made a little bit of a dip. So I filled and sanded that. But like I said, you can go over and do that. That's kind of like an example of, if you mess up, don't worry, you can go over and do it again. Once you've gone over and you've done the black again, I didn't put any lacquer on. I just felt like the lacquer would just ruin it at this stage. So don't put lacquer on if you don't want to. It definitely makes it look more popish, sort of like colour wise. Right, so as you can see here, it's now coming together. It's looking good. You know, it still isn't perfect. As you can see where the red is, it kind of like helped that eye a bit. There is a bit of a bleed on the right eye, as you can see now with the red. But don't worry about stuff like that, because that can be done by the final touches. This was a bit of a nightmare to do, but if you've got the patience, using some fine line tape is good. So you kind of just have to make up the design yourself. You can cut it out in some, say, masking tape and then stick it over the top. But when you use fine line like this, you can get your own shape. So this would be a custom shape for the top of his head. This is obviously what it looks like, but that's how you do it. So what you need to do is make sure you've got plenty of masking tape, because at this stage you don't want to get any overspray onto it. So first of all, you mask it up. Then you put on this dust coat. As you can see, it's a tiny dust coat of plastic primer. It's not a lot. And then you just give it a little dust coat and then a tiny sort of like one coat of red, and then it will be finalized and finished. And then you just need to peel it off very carefully, not peeling off the paint at the same time. Right, so this is the end result. As you can see on the ears, I've used like a chrome sort of like silver paint. What you need to do is just spray some of that into the cap of the lid of what it came in. Use a very fine paintbrush and just wait for it to start going off. So once the paint starts going off, it will thicken up, and once it thickens up, it will allow you to put that on, and it will cover over that black nice and easy. One coat, that's all it took, and that went straight over. With the detailing, as you can see, there isn't actually much detailing on this. You might think there is, but there isn't. All I did was went around with a Sharpie black pen to do the nose. So I just did the nose and then filled in the gap, and that's all that is a Sharpie pen there. I used the red on the eyes and the mix and black up to do that, and then just used the Sharpie pen to just finish off the tiny detail there. And that's it, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed watching that how-to guide on how to make Litten. If you do know anybody that makes boxes or makes custom boxes so that I can obviously get her into the custom box, that'd be excellent. Because obviously I do want to have it so that it's on display. I have worked out that if I cut the box down inside, not the actual box itself, but the plastic sleeve that it goes into, I can get it to fit. I have been working with it to try and get her to go in there, and she goes in there absolutely fine. She just has to be tilted to the side a little bit, which is not an issue for me. Right, so guys, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.